He was the Rav in Wilkes-Barre before he came to Clanton Park.
Wow. Gewaltig. Okay, I get to Bach. Hayoim echad ushloishim yoim shehem marba shavuos ushloish yom loimer motzei Shabbos pashas emor. I just want to before we start Chullin, I want to correct a very amaratus mistake I made at the end of Mesachas Menachos, and I just want to correct it. And on Daf Kuf Vav Amar Aleph of Mesachas Menachos, Rab Simi Bar Chia said, "Oh, sorry. First off, Rav said, Mr. First, the pasuk says that they recognize they only recognize the Rebbeinu Shalom those 5 cities. So Eisei Rab Simi Bar Chia l'Rav imizach shemesh adm v'yoy gadol shemi bagoyim ubechol makom mukter mugesh l'shemi u'minchat Torah. Meaning the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is recognized everywhere in the world. So I can say only in those 5 cities. Amar lei. So Rav answered back to Rab Simi, Simi at, you're Simi. So that's his taina. There's a pasha to teretz. You should know better. The kari la elaka de elaka. Yes, he's recognized everywhere in the world, but they look at him like he's removed from the belt. He has his lower level managers, the avodah zaros that run the world. So that's what it means. Yes, they all know that the Rebbeinu Shalom is the Rebbeinu Shalom, but they look at him like not the only Rebbeinu Shalom, like the head Rebbeinu Shalom. And that's shot. I typed it a little differently. I'm not even going to repeat what I said. Zok the Heilige Gemara, the new Masechta of Chullin. Hakoil Sheichtin, everybody has to can shecht, u'shchitasan kshera. Chutz mecheresh shoyte v'katan, why shema yikalkalu a shchitasan. V'chulun sheshachtu v'achem roi noisan shchitasan kshera. So we really have 4 halachas in this Mishnah. A, hakoil sheichtin shchitasan kshera. Some group of people, lechatchila can shecht. That's hakol sheichtin. Hakol sheichtin. Some group of people can shecht. Ushchitasan kshera. There's another group of people that lechatchila they can't shecht, but b'di'eved they could shecht. Chutz mecher shoyte v'katan shemi kalkula shchitasan. That's clear what that's talking about. And then v'chulon sheshachtu v'achein roi noisan. If someone shechted with supervision, we're not sure who we're referring to yet. Shechitasan kshera. We're going to have, I think, 7 or maybe 6 pshatim in this Mishnah. And then after we learn all 6 pshatim, just in case you forgot and you missed the complexity of Menachos, after we learn all 6 pshatim, the Gemara is going to go through each one, why everybody argues on them. So what I'm going to do is, as we learn the pshatim, I'm going to speak out the kashas on each pshat, so that when we get to the end, it'll already be clear by us. Hakol shoychin is mashma l'chatchilush. Chodashim k'sheir is mashma b'di'eved. It's a stira. Amal l'Rabacha b'rei the Rabba l'Ravashi. Who said that hakol has a mashmois of l'chatchila? V'chol hakol l'chatchilahu. Alamayata hakol mamirin. Anyone could make temura, which is an iser. Daraisa. Echad o anoshim v'echad anoshim hachanami l'chatchilahu. Are you going to claim that l'chatchila they could make temura? V'ksiv lo yachlifanu v'lo yomer oisay toy v'rabatoy. It's clearly not l'chatchila. It's aser. It's a lav. Zok Gemara, that Mishnah doesn't just say Kol Marmirin. The Tana adds spice. The Tana adds an explanation. Hazam kidikatani taima lo isha adam rishai lahamir. Don't v'taich our hakoil mamirin as lechatchila, because you're not allowed to be meimer. Rather, what the Mishnah is telling you is shem heimer mummer. Hakoil mamirin, their temura will be effective. It will work, and therefore they will be v'soviges arboim. They'll get malchus for it. So okay, so you don't have a raya from there, but I'm going to bring you a raya from another hakoil that indicates that it's lechat. It's not lechatchila. It says hakoil marichin v'nerachin. We know erachin are a prescribed value amount to different people. So you could say erech yalai or erech ploni yalai, or someone else can say erech halacha, right? Erech alav, that is, it can be mechayiv, it can be mechayiv himself. And your value is based on a prescriptive value in the Torah. Up to 30 days, there's no erech, there's no value, and over 30 days and over 50, depends on if a male or a female. There's a whole bunch of different categories. Noidrin v'nidrin is the same thing, but it's not based on the prescribed values in the Torah. It's based on what the value of someone to be sold as a slave. Rashi speaks out just two distinctions. If someone tries to be mechayiv himself the erechid of a small child under 30 days, there's no chiv at all. But if it's nether, then we see how much that baby would be sold for. On the other hand, an adult who's a mukashkin, who's useless, would never be purchased even for a penny as a slave. So if you're neither to give his value, you're not giving anything. But if you're ma'arich, we say erechav alav, and you're archive. So Zok Gemara Hachanami l'chatchila. You can't say that l'chatchila you can make a nether. When you finally stop making the darim, then lo yibachachet. V'ksiv, it also says in Kahelas, toiv asher loy tidar misha tidar v'loy tishalem. Better not to make the darim. Utanya, we learned toiv mizeh mizeh. You know it's the best. She'enoi noider kolikar. It's the best thing is not to make any nedar. Miral diver of mayor. So Reb Meir darshans the pasuk toiv asher loy tidar misha tidar v'loy tishalem. It means don't make any nether at all, whether you keep it or not. Why? Because you might end up making a nether and you won't fulfill it. Rabbi Yehuda no. The best thing is to make a nether and fulfill your nether. So he dashes the pasuk. If you're not going to pay, then better don't make a nether. But if you're going to pay, it's a good thing to make a nether. Even Rabbi Yehuda, who says you can make a nether, that's a nether of harezu, because two reasons. A is and second of all, if it's right here, so then we don't have to be worried that you're not going to give it in. Even the average Avol, if you said harei alai, loy, that would not be allowed. So you're not allowed to make a nether. So you see, first this brisa of akoil marichin, clearly that's a lashon of akoil that's b'diavad, not l'chatchila. So Tosfos points out a very interesting point. Tosfos says as follows. Maybe it's on Amud Beis. Maybe it's on Amud Beis. What am I looking for? No, I am looking for. Where does Tosfos asks, you find that in fact Yaakov Avinu made a nether. So and to bring karbanis, you have to make a nether. So the difficulty is, how could you say you're not supposed to make a nether? Sometimes you have to make a nether. I think there's how could they have eaten meat in the midbar if it was without a nether? Maybe it's over here. Huh?
Why couldn't it be in Zava?
For Kereb, Meir, even a dummy you shouldn't make. 1 second. It's not over here. Where is it? I found it there.
We lost your voice.
No sound.
I'm trying to fix it. One second. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now I hear you.
Okay, 1 second. Testing, testing. Okay.
Okay.
Now they can hear me. So you were able to hear me, and then suddenly it went dead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say. Okay, so we're okay. Touch it on the base. Okay, 1 second. Messed up my it messed up my whole screen. 1 second. Did this stop working? My camera, my Gemara stuff. Oh, it is there. I have to get my Gemara to start working again. Okay, now I can see this again. 1 second. Okay. Now we have to see if we could find. Okay, something I messed up here, but we'll have to figure it out later. Zok the Heilige Gemara. So, Tosh's Reborchasing is on the base?
Yeah.
Towards the bottom, right? So Tosh's asks over here, V'im Toimer Hech Achul Yisrael Shlom B'Midbar. V'Yishleimar Kivin Shenesru B'Inyan Acher B'Basar Taiva Hava Ki'ilu Tziva Lehem Amokoim Lechal Yidei Shlomim. V'im Toimer V'Oksev Ayida Yaakov Neder Uchsev Asher Nedarti Ashalema. So you see there's a need to make another. Yishleimar De B'Shas Tzara Shari Kedamrina B'Bereshis Rabba V'Yida Yaakov Neder Leimor L'Doiroi Sheyunoidim Beis Tzara. The Beis Tzara is supposed to noder. There are those Rishonim who learn that the whole thing of Toiva Shadai only applies to Karbonis. It doesn't apply to other types of Nidrei Mitzvah or Chiyuv. The whole concept of not making a neder doesn't apply to Toiva Shadai is referring to Kachim. Okay, Zok the Gemara weiter. Of Omar Arei Alai Loi. Frank the Gemara now took another side. So you just proved that the Hakoil means B'di'evet, because Hakoil by Nidorim is B'di'evet. Frank the Gemara, so B'chol Hakoil lav lechatchilu? So you can tell me Hakoil is not lechatchilu? Ella, what about Hakoil Chayovim B'sukkah, Hakoil Chayovim B'tzitzis? That's for sure lechatchilu. Hachanami da lav lechatchilu? Zok the Gemara, that's not a raya. Hakoil Chayovim is different. Hakoil Shoichlin is very different than Hakoil Chayovim. So Hakoil Chayovim loy kamina. Hakoil Chayovim, everybody agrees, is for sure a lechatchilu. But Hakoil, we don't have a right to. So far, we only have a right that Hakoil is b'di'evet. Elamayata, it says Hakoil soymichin. Anybody makes micha. Echad ha'anoshim v'echad anoshim. Hachanami the lav lechatchilu. Can you say that's not lechatchilu? V'ksiv v'samach yodoi v'nirtza. There's a mitzvah chiyuv to make smicha. Zok the Gemara in. You're right. We have Ra'is Azoi, we have Ra'is Azoi. So Hakoil Shoichlin can go either way. So therefore, that's not a kasha. In Ika Hakoil Lechatchilu, Vika Hakoil Di'evet. El Hakoil Dahacha, Oy Bazoi, Mimayda Lechatchilu Hu. The Tikshilach, Dilma Di'evet Hu. Maybe Hakoil Shoichlin is Di'evet. So Hakoil Shoichlin is Chlusam Gshera. It's all Di'evet. V'loi Tikshilach. Omar Lei, Rab Ashi answered, and Tosis is Medayik, from the fact that it's the stomach of the Gemara talking. And we know it's Rabashi, as mentioned at the beginning of the parak on Amar Aleph, to write that Rabashi was the one who wrote the Gemara. Amarle, Anosh Chitasan Keshera Kashali. My kash is on the second halacha, Shchitasan Keshera. Midikatani Shchitasan Keshera, Di'evet, it's clearly a lashon of Di'evet. Michlal, the Hakoil, the first comment is Lechatchilu. The Di'evet, if Hakoil Shoichlin is also Di'evet, Tarti Di'evet Lamali. Why do I need to repeat the same halacha twice? What could it have said? Look, Rashi, Hachi by Misni, Shchita Sakoil Ksheira, Chutz Mecher Shoyte V'Katan. The Mashma Shapir, the Hanech the Marbinan, the Hakoil is Di'evet Kamarbinan, Avalol Lechatchila. So Zok Gemara, Omar Rabba Bar Ula. So Rabba Bar Ula is the first of, I believe, 6 or 7 Rutzim. To Rabba Bar Ula, to Rab Ashi, it's Abaye, it's Rabba, and it's 2 Ravinas. So it's going to be 7 Pshatim. We're going to have 7 Pshatim, and the Gemara is going to know why each of these 7 Pshatim didn't hold like the others. So the first Pshat is Rabba Bar Ula. Omar Rabba Bar Ula, Hachi Katani. Hakoyel Sheichtin, you know what that's referring to? Even Lechatchila, Bafilu Tomei Bechulin. Doesn't say anything in the Mishnah about Tomei Bechulin, but we're explaining that when the Torah said Hakoyel Sheichtin Lechatchila, it's even a person who's Tomei can Shecht Chulin. Frankly, more that's a bombshell chiddush that I need a Tanya to tell me. Tomei Bechulin, Ma'in Lebemra. Why can't the Tomei Shecht Chulin? Chulin you're allowed to make Tomei. Zokt Gemara, Bechulin shenasu al Taras HaKodesh. You know what it is? It's Chulin shenasu al Taras HaKodesh, which Rashi explains. The Kibbal, someone that was makabel upon himself, lechol b'taharas kodesh. Why would he do that? Because he's moving to Yerushalayim and he knows he's going to be eating karbanos, so he wants to get himself used to eating karbanos. Sheroitza lahar galatzmai b'taharas kochim shemyechol shlom m'aytoida yebaki b'shmirasan. So if someone was makabel to eat his chulin al Taras HaKodesh, he's a lot of shech when he's tamei. Zok Gemara, v'kasover chulin shenas al Taras HaKodesh is kekodesh tamei. Midrabanan, you're mechuyev to stick to it. So therefore, you're not allowed to be metamed this chulin. Keitzaru oisa. So it says lechatchila you can shecht. He's not allowed to make a tamei. So what do? Maybe sakin arucha. He brings a long knife, so he will not touch the behemoth itself. V'shoichet ban will shechted kidei shelo yiga bebasar. So l'chatchila you're allowed to shecht if you're tamei, as long as you have a long knife, so you're not going to come in contact with the basar. Frek toisvis. How could you say that shema yiga bebasar? It's not hookshit. Well, the knife itself, the Gemara is going to ask soon. But now, of course, the behemoth is not. It's tumas oichel. The behemoth is not hookshit l'kabel tuma. It has to come in contact with either yad shachadam, with one of the mashkin. So where's the mashkin? The dam. Oh, Zoktoisus, Avagav the dam kochim einoi machsher. So it's not Zokshir. Zoktoisus, we know there's a concept, but Bechibas HaKodesh machsheres. The Balt Hektish is Chaviv. Sorry? True, but this Toisus is really in the second line of the Gemara. Uve Mekdoshin lo yishchot. Hakol shoyt l'chatchila chulin shenas al Taras. Uve Mekdoshin lo yishchot. Why lo yishchot by Mekdoshin? Because we're afraid he'll make it tummy. Shema yiga b'basar. So that Toisus was asked, what do you mean Shema yiga b'basar? Avagav will come to dam kochem ein machsher chibas hakodesh machsheres. Oi shehavir banar v'adayin neshketif hechaleh. It could have been speaking where the animal was wet. The animal got wet. It was in the river, and that's why it's mashke tefeach. Gewaltig. Toisus asks another kasha. I guess I got it that he's happy. It rinses off because it has to be. It has to be v'chi. Yeah, what's the lashon? V'chi. V'chiyutan, right? Kizok to Gemara weiter. So that's what we're talking about. The lechatchila kol shoychten. But the Mekdosh lo yishchot, do shchitasim ksheira only by the eved is by Mekdosh lo yishchot. Why? Shema yiga b'basar. V'imshachad v'amar bora li shaloi nigati. I'm sure I didn't touch it. Shchitasim ksheira, the carbon will be kosher. Frek toisvis, why do we let him shecht? Why isn't there a problem? Shema from Tamer amai lo kamar the lo yishchot. Why do we say lo yishchot? Because Shema yiga b'basar. There's another reason why he shouldn't shecht. Mishum dilma asi li mashech bifnim. Tafilu tar gomer leven zayma. Damar niklas lamikdish ton tfila va'asher lishchot b'sakan arucha d'maslam shuchei. Even time there's a tar gomer, v'ibati muchiv to go to the mikveh, even though you're tar, you're not allowed to walk into the azar. So we don't let him shecht. You know why? Because we're afraid he's shechting. He might lean over. He might go inside. So here he's tamei. It's even worse. So why didn't the Gemara say that's why the chetchila he shouldn't shecht? The Shloimer, huge chiddush of Toisvis. The betar ikal migzor tvei dama asalim shuchei. A guy who's tar is not being careful. He's not watching because he knows he doesn't have to worry. He's tar. He's not chayv kars. Avol tamei mizar zaru mitker. There's a bigger chashash that a tar will come inside than a tamei. Because a tamei knows he's chayv kars. If he goes in, he'll be very careful. But a tar, we're afraid he might go in. So therefore, we had to use the chashash shemayigal b'basar. Inami nacharacha shemayigal b'basar. Mishum devay lememar, because the Gemara fears us. We just said v'mshachas b'mar borili shloi negati. So what do you mean shloi negati? It must be that that's the chashash. Now Rabbeinu Ephraim is a gavaltika kasha. Hikshir Rabbeinu Ephraim praktish keret. Eich yitochen shetei sakan arucha kol kach mehara bayis at Eretz Yisrael. You have any idea how far that is? The high tame mukmidla b'samach af b'tame meis. The Gemara behandled that it could be even speaking about a tame meis. Utnav perkama de kelim achel mikudish mehara bayis. There was an area that was sectioned off even within the harabayis that midrabanan they answered a tame meis to go in, a tame meis and a goy. Shein tame meis v'avid chav nuchnasem l'sham. If you actually go into the there's a book of Mishkan V'Kelev, a big beautiful book they make on it. They once gave it out here. The Mermelstein and Tenenbaum family donated it to give the children from Alba Sabonim. And it's they actually had an actual picture. There used to be signs on the chel, like stone tablets all over the chel, every couple of feet, so everyone could see it. That would say both in Hebrew and in Greek, a tame may not pass beyond this point, and a goy may not pass beyond this point, punishable by death. That's what it said right there. So they couldn't go. So if he had to be out there by the chel, how in the world is he going to shecht from there with such a long knife? Zok to Gemara, Ezras noshim mikudeshes himenu, she'ein tful yoim nichnas l'sham. A tful yoim couldn't come into the Ezras noshim. Va'afil man demukila benitma b'sheretz. The maskana the Gemara says the tumah here that we're talking about is tumah sheretz. So therefore he can come past the chel.
He's not on top of his knife.
We'll get to that in a second. But he'll get back, he can get past the chel, but if he gets past the chel, he still has Ezras Noshim. Ezras Noshim Arucha Kuf Lamed Hey Amma. It's 135 amas. You're going to have a knife that's 135 amas long. Maybe yes, someone who's Tulyoy may not come in. Someone who's Tumashish may not come into the Zorah. But if he was there already and there's a Noshim, and he became Tommy there, maybe he wouldn't have to go out, and therefore he could have shechted. The Pirish Leichmir Ela Be'ezes Noshim, because that's the front entrance. So the whole Ezes Noshim is also. But what if you came in through the side? If you reached into one of the side entrances of the Azara, okay, Gavalt. Or maybe it's being by a Bama, Tosha says. Maybe it was being by a Bama Gedoyla. That's where you shifted. So there's no, they didn't have those perimeters, yeah. Gewaltig. Okay, Zog to Gemara weiter. Now we have to get to the next section. Chutz mecher shoyd v'koton tafilu b'chulun grady the Eved nami loy do not shecht, and it's possible with the Eved. Why? Shema yishu shema yidusu shema yachlidu. Now we know that there's 5 psula shchita. For some reason, our Gemara is only concerned about 3. Why? So let's go through them. Shia, we know what it is. Shia means you pause for a minute, right? Shia, you paused. You paused during the shchita. You stopped for a second. How long the shia is? You tell me so that for shia, you have to pause. Drasa means you're putting pressure. You're not just cutting. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people, a lot of hechsherim are makbid that the ox has to be turned upside down, has to be inverted in order to shech properly. Because if you have to shech pushing up, because the animal standing, it might be drasa. It might be drasa. Because you have to put a little pressure. If you put a little bit too much, it's drasa. If it's upside down, you can just go back and forth, and the gravity will do it. So there's some hechsherim that will not accept a behema with the pens right side up. The pen turns the behema upside down. Okay? And v'shema yachlidu. Yachlidu means if you stick your knife into the neck and then you cut out. Those are the 3 psulim that we're talking about here. There's 2 more. Hagrama and Iker. Hagrama is if you shechted in the wrong place, out of the zone, too high or too low. That's right. And Iker is if you shecht with a chalaf that had a pkam, or if you stick the knife and then rip out the simonim. So the reason why we're not worried about a grama and ikar, because if that happens, we see it. We would see the results. But shihiyah, drasa, and chalada, you couldn't tell. So memela, we can't let a cher shoyde v'katan shecht. Now let's look at the last line in the Mishnah. V'chulan sheshachtu ahaya. What case is it referring to? Ilema cher shoyde v'katan, which was the case immediately prior to the v'chulan sheshachtu. Alakai. So v'im shachtu miboyle. It should have said Cheresh shayta v'katan lo yishchad shema yidrusu v'im shachtu v'acheim oimer al gabeim is kosher. V'chulun sheshachtu clearly is including something in addition to the cheresh shayta v'katan. Ella, it must be speaking atome b'chulun. What do you mean atome b'chulun? If someone watched, ha'amr l'chatchila nami shachad without anybody watching. Ella atome b'mekdashim. Why don't somebody watch that? B'barli sagi, right? Even if by himself he says barley. So Gemara, maybe it's speaking the lesser command in the shaili. Maybe he had a heart attack after he shechted, and we don't know. So therefore, if people were watching, then it'll be mutter. It's a doichik shtickle.
What?
They were watching him shecht, and they saw he didn't make shia, he didn't make drasa, he didn't make halata.
And then he ran away?
Then he died. No, he died, but people were watching. So we can't ask him if he did it.
So what's the chiddush that they...
I'm sorry, this is Tommy. If he would say, I didn't touch the animal, I didn't make a Tommy, there's no problem, but he died. So we don't know, did he touch the animal or not? If you have people watching, if people watched the shechita and saw that he didn't touch the animal, so then we know it's a kosher shechita.
It was a chiddush that the others...
So you're telling me touch the b'chiddush of people watching?
No, if you believe him himself, or why do you believe somebody else?
So you don't like this pshat so much? Okay, listen, there's 6 other Amoraim that Grad didn't like this pshat. Not for that reason, but yeah, it's a very big doichik. It's a very big doichik. To say it's speaking punkt, when the guy who shechted died, you couldn't ask him, it's a doichik. But we have a problem with v'chulan. You're going to see a lot of people didn't have any pshat at all in the v'chulan. So this is, someone told me it's not a good pshat, it's a doichik. So my answer to him was wait till you hear the others. First see what your alternatives and your options are, then you decide which one is the doichik. The lesser command in the shaila. So that is how we learn pshat in the Mishnah. Frank the Gemara, we have a major problem with this pshat. Why? Because basically what you're telling me is that the chiddush of our Mishnah is that tamei b'mekdoshin l'tchila can't shecht. Right? And tamei b'chum shenas al tezer kodesh l'tchila could shecht. We have a Mishnah that tells us this already. In Zvachim, hatamei b'mekdoshin mehacha navka, mehacha navka. It says in the Mishnah in Zvachim, kol ha'psulim sheshachtu, shechidasim ksheira, and then the Tana lists off all the psulim. Sheshchitik ksheir bezorim bin Hashem u'ba'avadim u'v'tmein. Va'afilu b'kotshei kodeshim. Uvilvad shelo yehei tmeim noigin b'basar. So we have it already. So why do I need a Tana here to tell me the same halacha? Zog the Gemara, maybe hasam ikr, maybe hach ikr. The real sugya of where it belongs, the shaila of whether or not atomic and shech b'mukdoshim, that's over here. So it belongs, it's not a kasha why it's here. There, Dagavarcha, hasam ID, the Tana sharp sulin, Tana nami, Tana b'mukdoshim. Or we may say, hasam ikr, there's the ikr, the b'kochim koi, hach ID, the Tana Tana b'chulin, Tana nami, Tana b'mukdoshim. Simple. So first I'm going to tell you why everybody else didn't learn like Rabbi Bar Ula. Because they hold that really hasam ikr, and they held the B'tazah Mikr, here it shouldn't have mentioned it at all. Agav the other psulim. So male, they don't like this pshat because they don't like to learn that this is the pshat in our Mishnah is Tamar b'Mekdashim and Tamar by Chun Shenes L'Hashkodesh, because we already have a Mishnah for it. It doesn't make sense that the Tana would have said it over here. So that's a pasha the reason. Now we already, when we learn tomorrow the sugya as to why nobody held like Rabbi Bar Ula, that's the reason. They held that's pshat in the Gemara Mishnah Zvachim. That's not pshat in the Mishnah here. They were talking about shchita skochim. So if it belongs there too.
Yeah, but not the shchita.
What do you mean? It says call up psulim sheshachtu. Talking about shchita. Okay, so that takes care of that. But I have another problem. Let's look at the Mishnah in Zvachim. It says call up psulim sheshachtu shechitasan ksheira. Shashchita ksheira bizarim v'nashim u'bavadim u'v'tmeim. It's mashma, these are all b'di'evet, right? Tmeim means tamei shouldn't shecht. B'di'evet, if he shechted, it will be kosher, right? Which means nashim are also b'di'evet. Nashim is in that list. So shouldn't you have a right from here that if nashim shecht, it's only kosher b'di'evet? Tosfos, on the first Tosfos the Masechta says, you have a right from our Mishnah that nashim can shecht lechatchila, right? So Tosfos is ma'ir this. And Tosfos says, v'bal to ikr for that is tmeim. It's through a nashim agavarcha. So therefore, you don't have a right from there that nashim is only b'di'evet. The main halacha is by tmeim. Zog the tzlach hamoridik gezach. These two pshatim in the Gemara, which one is dicker? Have to use nafkamina. Because if you hold the ikr is tmeim, then noshim is agavarcha, so you could say noshim are mutal l'chadil l'shecht. But if you hold that here it's ikr, that means there it's only agavarcha. So what is the ikr there? The ikr must be noshim. So that Mishnah must hold that noshim cannot shecht l'chadil. That's what the tzlach says. Beautiful shtickle. Gezok the Gemara weiter. Now we have to know Hai Tomei the Itmei B'mai. Exactly what did he become Tomei with? Right? There's a famous joke they say. If the waiter who spilled soup on the guy, he's a shlemazel. He's a shlemiel. The guy who the soup got spilled on him, he's the shlemazel. And the guy who asked what type of soup was it, that's the nudnik. Right? So here we're going to have Hai Tomei the Itmei B'mai. How did he become Tomei? Zok the Gemara, Ilema the Itmei B'meis. If he became Tomei B'meis, if he's a Tomei Meis, right, this is what Tosh just meant, that the Gemara considers a Tomei Meis has a very interesting klal, that when a metal keli touches Tumas Meis, or a derivative of Tomei Meis, meaning if it touches the Meis, it becomes Avia voice. If it touches the person who touched the Meis, now the person's an Av, the knife touches him, the knife becomes an Av. Because by Tumas Meis only, there's a rule, B'chalal Cherev or Merachmana, Cherev Hareyu Kechalal. The Cherev takes on the same level of Tumah as what it touched when it comes to Tumas Meis. So this fellow is an Avatuma. He touched the knife became an Avatuma. So even if he doesn't touch the carbon, the knife's touching the carbon. So for the Gemara, Avatumahu, Litami L'sakin, Vazal Sakin, Vitimis L'basar. Even if he doesn't touch the basar, the sakin is going to be Tamar Basar. I believe that was your kasha. Elazak Gemara must be speaking the Itmi B'Sheretz. You know how it became Tamei? He became Tamei Sheretz. So Mamela, he will only make the sakin into a Rishon, and a Rishon cannot make, if he became Tamei B'Sheretz, he's a Rishon. And a Keli cannot become a Sheni. Only Oichlin and Mashkin can become a Sheni. And therefore, if he touches the boss itself, he'll make the boss apostle. But the knife doesn't become Tamei. But maybe he used something that wasn't Makabal Tumah, it wasn't metal. He used a kroimish shalkana. The Tanya Bakol Sheichen, Bein Betzur, Bein Beschuches, Bein Bekroimish Shalkana. Gewaltig. Now, let's stop for a minute, because Toshus has a problem. Shrita requires a kli. Stam a loose reed, that's not a keli. We know you need to use a keli. The first carbon oil that was ever shekted, Avram Avinu shekted an oila, the oila tuna kli. All carbonos need a kli. So if it needs a kli, how could the Gemara say the case was that you were boidik a kroim shalkana? Which is just a plant you cut down. So the kliates. Oh, so what you are tining is what Tosh is about to say. The tikno lekroimis also can kli. You could have formed it nicely. You could have made it into a knife. You could form it. And therefore it is a keli. It's not going to be able to be a klei shorish because you can't have a klei shorish out of wood. The avagav the kaimalon karebi de amar perka chalil a noisen klei shorish shalates upalagar Yosy bar Yehuda de amar beperka chalil oisen klei shorish shalates l'schitas kachim loy bodin klei shorish. You need a keli, but you don't need a klei shorish. You need a keli to shecht kachim, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a klei shorish. And Tosfos brings a raya that you don't need a klei shorish. The beperka toida amrinon. The sakin mekacha techlisharis. It says the sakin is mekadosh techlisharis. V'cheimashu with the sefta the katani chomer bekmita mi b'shchita. Kmita is a bigger chomer than shchita. Shekmita tuna kli. The kmita needs a klisharis. V'shchita ain't tuna kli el afilu kareim shalkana. So clearly it's saying that although it has a kli, it doesn't need a klisharis. V'yakorach loy boila meimar. It's not saying that you don't need a keli at all to shecht. So even though shchita needs a keli, it doesn't have to be a klisharis. So therefore you can make it out of wood. Maybe that all that we learn from there is that But lav dafka, do you have a raya from there that you don't need a kli sharis? Now Toshis brings another raya, a geshmak raya from what we from karbonis that we say every day. Rabbeinu Ephraim, how you may be right in the town of Perek Ezer Mekoybin. What do we say? Shechitosim bat Safain doesn't mention anything about Keli. V'ki will domin bechli sharis bat Safain. V'ilu shechitosim bechli sharis bat Safain. It doesn't say that. Like Adoni, Kidik Adoni Gabe Kabbalah. Ganze Geshmak raya. Zok Toshis veins a raya. You know why? The Gabe Kabbalah maybe nami lo hisker ella, not that the clay has to be kli sharis. Ella shminin the boy shegam akli bat Safain. When you're makabel dam, the mizrak that you're makabel the dam in has to also be bitzafain. So that's why it says the kibel dam b'chli sharis bitzafain. Lafuke makli b'darm, b'beima bitzafain. Right? What if the keli was b'darm, b'beima was bitzafain, and the dam squirted out into the keli? V'adam ekalech b'taychay, that wouldn't be good. Teda bring a raya. The b'kachim kalim, the leiboy tzafain, lechosh la'asker kabbalah b'chli sharis. It doesn't say anything about a kli sharis. So you see, vice rois and avadi, you need a keli, you need a kli sharis for kabbalah sadam for kachim kalam. So you see, the chiddush is that you need it to be b'tzofan. That's why he mentions it. But the chalat does not have to be b'tzofan.
Doesn't have to be b'tzofan.
Correct. That's why he doesn't mention the kli. If it's a din in that it needs a kli, then it should say by kachim kalam as well. Ubeper kol azvachim shekibel dom the tan kachim kalam shechitosam b'fnim. The kibel dom b'chli sharis b'fnim. There it does say b'chli sharis. Hasam nami asal hashminon to tzorich shia kli b'fnim. Lafukim roi v'keli b'chutz u'miyut b'fnim. Could have a long keli, most of it be b'chutz, some of it is b'fnim. U'makabel adam b'mich b'fnim. That wouldn't be good. Avagav she'nifsal b'yoytzei. Even though it won't be possible b'yoytzei, but it will be possible because the klei sharis has to be in the azara, and the klei sharis by a kodesh kochim has to be in the tzofan. Gewaltig, Baruch Hashem, we were zeiche to learn Daf Gimel, the Beis, and tomorrow we're going to learn Daf Gimel. I'm sorry?
Why wouldn't it be this?
Probably because you made sure the dam stayed inside the Azara. It's a big keli, but you keep the dam on that side of the keli. I'm assuming, otherwise why Taka wouldn't have built.
Then what's the problem?
The keli has to be for them.
Just the keli.
Yeah, the keli has to be for them. Okay, everyone should have a gewaltige gute Woche. So tomorrow, Bez Hashem, we're having a siyum at right after the 8 o'clock minyan, around 9.